koto and welcome to the Nzei Te Riu Roa annual report for the 2015-16 year.
It's been a year in which government has continued with a radical program to reshape education and the lives of children and the professionals who work within the system.
And it's been another year where Nzei Te Riu Roa has lobbied and negotiated for equitable and positive outcomes for our children and the profession. At the same time, our members have been out in their communities, on the streets and in the offices of parliamentarians, making sure educators' voices are heard.
Members working together has been a strong focus this year. It's meant each sector supporting colleagues who are engaged in their own specific battles.
A quarter of children with disabilities don't get enough help with their schoolwork. 1 in 5 struggle to attend a whole...
Special education is one sector that's fought hard in 2015-16, seeking to get better resourcing for children and professionals. Part of that campaign has been to get a better deal for SENCOs, 90% of whom responded to our survey stating there is inadequate support for them and their students. At the same time, Nzei Te Riu Roa joined parents and caregivers to pressure government for better funding and participated in government's special education update forums. We've strongly opposed the ministry's client-directed funding planned for 2017, which looks very much like the failed voucher experiments tried in the USA.
100% qualified and registered teachers for early childhood education remained the cornerstone of our policy and advocacy throughout the year. Early childhood education centres and kindergartens have faced 5 years of funding cutbacks, and this year we've worked with employers to jointly promote the funding of quality ECE.
Your weaving does sit in a political context, nationally and internationally.
Our big event in 2015 was the Te Whariki Symposium held in July. More than 200 early childhood teachers from Auckland and Waikato attended the event, where there were presentations from co-authors of Te Whariki, which is 20 years old this year.
This journey begins at birth.
Guys on the field.
It's been another tough year for support staff. Many had their pay cut by 3.7% because of the ministry's interpretation of annualisation. However, following a high-profile media campaign, Nzei Te Riu Roa secured a big legal win when the Employment Relations Authority ruled the Ministry of Education had acted unlawfully.
Another group of support staff to seek redress from the Employment Court was a group of education support workers who, in October 2015, made a claim for fair pay under the Equal Pay Act. The court directed the government and employers to work with unions to develop principles that will lift the pay of female workers, and we are currently waiting Cabinet's response to the principles. In May's budget, a freeze was placed on school operations grants, threatening support staff jobs and hours.
The funding freeze is a really big worry for us.
That freeze has become the focus of a high-profile campaign in the lead-up to renegotiation of the collective agreement later in 2016.
Together we can do this, Aotearoa.
And as new educators, we need your help to make learning to teach as successful as possible.
Beginning teachers are another group who have received whole-of-union support this year.
All new educators.
Following the NEN presentation at last year's annual meeting, the union took up their call for fair employment. In May 2016, we launched the Beginning Teachers Charter, asking schools to commit to supporting new and beginning teachers. The charter was positively received by principals and generated significant social media and national media coverage.
Māori language teachers made significant gains in this year's collective agreement, and Te Reo Ariari and Miro Māori were engaged at all levels of NZDI campaigns in 2015-16. They made crucial contributions to contract negotiations, the joint initiative and the ASET application process. Te Kahui Whetū 2015 was held in Ruatoki. It was a powerful hui at which participants were challenged to reacquaint themselves with their iwi, tikanga, whanaungatanga, and most of all, te reo rangatira.
In 2014, your strong stand forced the government back to the negotiating table over the IES. And in 2015, we made significant strides towards making the communities of learning model more responsive to the local needs of children.
As a result, members voted to vary the primary teacher and principal agreements, allowing for new roles to be established and giving the green light to ongoing engagement over communities of learning.
In Phase 2 of the joint initiative, NZEI and Ministry sought ways to make the model more responsive to the needs of the early childhood sector, Māori and Pacifica, special education and support staff.
It was a gruelling process, but some progress has been made, particularly in the early childhood area, which you'll remember was not included in the original model.
Meanwhile, members at the grassroots have pressured to stretch the model, and NZEI has helped by appointing staff whose role is to advise and assist.
That advice is, don't rush in, and pressure for achievement challenges and leadership that works for your community.
As a consequence of our efforts, the Grand Plan of IES, announced by the PM in January 2014, continues to be mired in negotiation.
Change in achievement.
By May 2016, only 19 communities of learning had agreed achievement challenges, and just a dozen communities had appointed leader roles. There's a long road to travel yet. As we mentioned, the 2016 budget signalled a battle over funding.
The positive economic outlook.
As well as freezing school and ECE operational funding, government announced the first stage of an experiment with individually targeted funding, calling it a social investment strategy. NZEI Te Riu Roa exposed the freeze as a cut and opposes the movement of funding away from thousands of children in need of learning support to a smaller number of children chosen using a narrow criteria.
The government wants to target children who need more support, and we absolutely appreciate that that's a good thing to do, but not at the expense of the operations grant, which actually provides support for all children.
We want better funding, not more funding.
Meanwhile, Minister Parata's long-promised 0 to 18 funding review began. Te Manakura Louise Green was appointed to the review group and has made it clear that free and equitable access to high-quality teaching and learning for all children is a key principle that should underpin any changes. Since then, the Minister has floated a return to bulk funding across the sector. The policy has resulted in a historic joint campaign by NZEI and its sister union PPTA. It has galvanised teachers and communities across the country.
In Parliament, the Minister has spent the past year driving through a raft of legislation. The Education Legislation Bill, which she presented as a tidy-up of old regulation, turned out to be part of a broader, radical agenda which NZEI Te Riu Roa has opposed.
We lobbied against changes that would allow principals to manage more than one school, and we argued against changes that will further embed charter schools by allowing tertiary institutions to sponsor them. The government's ongoing commitment to charter schools continued in 2015-16, despite the embarrassing failure of the Whangaruru school at the cost of around $5 million.
The Education Legislation Bill also contained an attack on quality ECE, enabling home-based education providers to simultaneously provide early childhood and after-school care. Changes also allowed home-based providers to have poorer staffing ratios.
The update of the Education Act turned out to be a complete overhaul. The very purpose of education is up for review, as well as the systems of governance and funding. Our member submissions made up the bulk of responses in the short consultation. But the reintroduction of the bill to the House shows that the government has not been turned from its radical agenda.
No way! No way!
Throughout the 2015-16 year, NZEI Te Riu Roa joined the pressure on government to abandon trade deals that have the potential to damage public education. The union was active in opposition to the TPPA and the International Trade and Service Agreement, TISA, which could expose public education to the predations of foreign edu-businesses. We also joined the global campaign against the business practices of education publishing giant Pearson and its promotion of high-stakes testing and privatisation in developing countries.
It's really important that, yes, we focus in education on doing the very best we can for children, but we need to look at the whole package, the whole child, and everything else that makes learning easy and possible for children.
In 2016, Nzei to Riu Roa remained at the forefront of advocacy for children everywhere.
These families in flight, transients, homeless families constantly on the move.
In a year where housing dominated the news, members spoke out about the effects of poor housing and child poverty on educational success and well-being.
Our aim is that we've got an action plan going.
National Executive Member and Maryvale School Principal, Jan Tinetti, went even further, organising a meeting in Tauranga to come up with temporary solutions to the crisis in her region.
We supported the extension of paid parental leave, and despite the threat of a government financial veto, community pressure brought an extension to 18 weeks. And we've continued our commitment to the living wage movement, which goes from strength to strength. In the past year, Nzei te Riu Roa had a presence at living wage community events throughout the country.
In April, educators from around New Zealand came together at Te Papa for the Pacifica Whānau. A diverse range of keynote speakers and 29 workshop presenters ensured the participants came away feeling empowered and energised. Te Kete Aranui had another stellar year in providing professional learning and development opportunities for members. This year's science focus has been warmly welcomed by members, and there have been a high level of participation in courses around autism, behaviour management and cultural awareness.
Meanwhile, our communications capacity continues to grow with an expanding online presence as well as visibility in mainstream media. Our magazine Education Aotearoa continues to be popular in schools and centres.
We began by talking of the challenges we face in a hostile political environment. The next year will be no different as government seeks to drive through its damaging agenda and social conditions continue to worsen for many of our tamariki and our communities.
Nevertheless, Nzei te Riu Roa is in good heart. We know the issues, and as recent events illustrate, we know how to mobilise our membership and our communities in support of quality public education. 2016-17 will be a critical year. Let's get out there and continue our great work.